All right, all right. It's great to see everybody here. Thank you all for taking the time to spend this with us to talk about some post-quantum cryptography, which may or may not be familiar to some of you all, but hopefully by the end of this conversation, we'll all have a better sense of what it is and what's at stake. So to start, maybe we can go through introductions, maybe left to right, starting with Chen Mo.
Sure. So my name is Chen Mo Chen. I've been working in crypto for many, many years, way too many years. I'm currently the chief cryptographer at BTQ. Yeah, nice to be here.
Hi, I'm Duncan Wong. So I grew up in Hong Kong and then went to the States for my PhD in cryptography. So very similar to Chen Mo's background. And after that, I went back to Hong Kong being a professor for more than 10 years. And a few years ago, I started off this project called Billion. So basically, I also consider myself as a cryptographer doing research in digital signature, key exchange, and all that. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy. I'm not a cryptographer. My background is actually in machine learning. And then I sort of self-study to write like CK applications. So yeah, a lot to learn from the two cryptographers here today.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to learn from everybody on stage today, but everybody's very bright, so very excited to have you on. We'll start off with a question to Duncan. Can you explain what post-quantum cryptography is in as simple terms as you possibly can?
Sure. So basically, if you look into like what cryptography is, to start with, cryptography is basically about designing security systems so that it will not be hacked by, for example, like encryption, digital signature. They are all security algorithms. That's the cryptography. But in terms of the post-quantum cryptography, it's a type of cryptography that we focus on the adversaries, that the adversaries has very powerful quantum computers. So if an adversary has a very powerful quantum computers, then we want to design the crypto systems which are still secure against those hackers. Yeah, so that's about post-quantum cryptography.
Yeah, okay, I think that's very well put. Chen Mo, why does post-quantum cryptography matter to blockchains specifically?
Yeah, that's because on blockchains, nobody knows your dog. No, I'm just kidding. So I guess on blockchain, you need to, the way that we establish ownership, how I prove that I own certain digital asset is by using these digital signatures. And as Duncan mentioned, this digital signature technology is built on cryptography. And currently, the most widely used digital signature scheme on today's most blockchains, they can be broken by quantum computers. Namely, if a hacker has access to a large quantum computer, he or she can basically own all the coins out there. So it's definitely relevant to blockchains.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And hopefully we can dive into the mechanisms a little bit more of how a quantum computer might steal everybody's coins.
Yeah.
And then
I
also,
wouldn't tell you if I know.
And also, a question for Kathy: is post-quantum cryptography important to zero-knowledge proofs?
Yeah, so just like in blockchain, there are a lot of sort of signature schemes that are not quantum safe. In ZK, there is also sort of two big families of proving schemes, ZK snarks and ZK starks. So a lot of, actually, I think most of snarks algorithms or schemes are not quantum proof. So for example, if we're aware of the upcoming upgrade in Ethereum, the proto-dank sharding, and there was actually a setup ceremony that came with it, the KCG commitment scheme, that's not quantum safe.
Mm-hmm. Right. So post-quantum cryptography is important to both blockchains, I guess the cryptography underpinning signatures, and also snarks, or ZK, which is responsible for scaling Ethereum and many other blockchains as well. So what are some of the most promising approaches to safeguarding blockchains from quantum computers? We'll pose this to Chen Mo and to Duncan.
Sure. So I guess so far, even though there's first of all, I have to say that I'm not a physicist, but according to my limited understanding, quantum computers, they're great, but they cannot solve every problem out there. So there's still some mathematical hard problems that at least at this point, we don't know how to break them even assuming we have a large quantum computers. So we cryptographers, we like to build crypto systems based on these kind of hard problems. So currently we're looking at a few candidates hard problems. They may be hard to break even if you have access to a large quantum computers. And these includes, for example, lattice problems. This includes code problem. This includes, for example, hash. You can even build, you can actually build a hash function, build a digital signature using just hash functions. So these are kind of a few problems that we're looking at in the crypto community, and we kind of already have a very good idea how to build secure, at least digital signature schemes and encryptions based on these hard problems.
And Duncan?
Yeah, so just follow up what Chemo mentioned over here. So for example, like most of the blockchain systems nowadays, they are not secure against quantum computers because their underlying digital signature is elliptic curve based. And the elliptic curve based cryptography is mainly based on the hard problem, which is called the elliptic curve discrete log problem. And back to 1994, the MIT professor Shor already invented the algorithm. If we implement that algorithm on a quantum computer, which can basically break elliptic curve discrete log problem or solve this problem efficiently. Efficiently, we are talking about like seconds or hours. But for other kinds of schemes like lattice-based, code-based, hash-based, multivariate-based, we don't know how to break those underlying assumptions to date. And for example, like our project called Abelian, we make use of lattice-based, which has been studied for decades. And throughout all these decades of research, development, there is no efficient way to break it, even if you have a very powerful quantum computer. And that's why, like recently, we have also been seeing like some of the government, including the American NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, they standardize some of those algorithms, which are based on, for example, like lattice-based. And basically, this indicates the confidence of the community in terms of the design of this kind of post-quantum blockchain. So we are basically keeping a close eye on it and also try to apply that kind of technology into practice. For example, like our project, that's what we are doing.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm understanding correctly, the way to safeguard blockchains and the cryptography that we use in blockchains against quantum computers is by swapping out, I guess, the mathematical problems that they assume to be difficult, that secure them, with these problems that quantum computers aren't able to solve. Yeah. And for Kathy, how do you see your work changing using post-quantum cryptography? Is ZK-ML and kind of the same ZK paradigm still possible with this new quantum-resistant cryptography?
Yeah, I think currently a lot of the existing ZK applications uses either a polynomial commitment scheme based proving scheme or let's say elliptic curves for mostly efficiency. And that's especially a problem with ZK-ML when the circuit or the program that we're trying to do in ZK is so big. So I think it actually would. I would foresee that eventually we will have to move to sort of like post-quantum ZK schemes like Fry that are more hash-based as one of the sort of hard problems for quantum computers. But like from there, I guess there is like hardware and there's also like software migration that we're gonna basically change all the things that we're doing with SNARKs right now and sort of move over. So that would be quite a process, I guess.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I guess it's good to know that it is still possible to do all of the, to create blockchains and SNARKs in the post-quantum setting, but obviously a lot of things underpinning them will change. And so I guess what are the biggest challenges that you guys see in addressing this post-quantum cryptography, this transition, and how can we effectively address those problems?
Sure. Yeah, so there are actually a lot of challenges. One major thing about this is really about the how to make sure it's post-quantum to start with. So for example, like a lot of those blockchain systems, there might be some kinds of misconception. Hey, I'm using hash functions, and shouldn't be the case that hash function is already post-quantum. Like if it is not post-quantum, then let's just increase the the size of it using the SHA-3, having the size of 512 bit as the output. But basically, when we look into a blockchain system or a crypto system or a security system in general, we are always looking into or try to identify so-called the weakest link, right? So when we talk about the weakest link of the blockchain with respect to post-quantum or the quantum resistant, we actually look into the signature schemes, like the digital signature. So for example, like if you use like Bitcoin, Ethereum, or that kind of public blockchain, you know that as long as you send one transaction out, then your public key is already revealed because the public key is written onto the ledger. And once the general quantum computer become mature, then basically people can reverse and compute the private key back. So I think the challenge of doing this kind of upgrade is really about how to do a very fundamental design of your blockchain system so that your system can be secure against quantum attacks from quantum computer by design. I think this is one of the major challenges rather than just adding patches to make it post-quantum. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I want to follow up what Duncan just said. So indeed, security is always the most important consideration. But on the other hand, when we get our hands on on all this engineering, and the performance can also be a huge challenge. And perhaps there's some, I guess so far we haven't seen any post-quantum crypto system that's as efficient in terms of speed, both speed and size, as say elliptic curve cryptography. ECC is really kind of I would say an exception. So when we migrate to post-quantum crypto, so the price we need to pay tends to be pretty significant if you're looking at the whole block. If you want to replace, say, ECC with post-quantum crypto, then we're looking at a potential factor of at least 10, if not more, in terms of size. For example, your ledger will become at least 10 times larger, if not more. So that's a huge challenge as well. And I think that's also kind of, so even though we can get the best cryptographers like Duncan here, and we can sit down and design a secure blockchain from scratch, let's say, using post-quantum primitives left and right, and making sure that it's secure. But at the end of the day, there's still I would say it's more of a psychological factor that you have to be prepared that you need to pay a price there because there's probably no free lunch.
Right, yeah. And Kathy, what do you think are the biggest challenges when it comes to applying PQC to post-quantum cryptography to ZK?
I think there's also, I guess, a friction on bringing developers on board as for how much cryptography or how much of the underlying mechanism they have to understand. Like for example, in the ZK world, it used to be very simple. It's SNARK versus STARK, where everyone is like, okay, STARK is quantum safe and SNARK is not. But right now, actually, if you look at the current implementations of a lot of the STARK verification, they actually, what they do is the proof is in STARK, but then they actually build a verifier in SNARK to verify that STARK proof. So then that means that it's actually not post-quantum safe in a way. So I guess the problem I see here is how much do developers or projects trying to implement these sort of tech stack, like how much do they need to understand about this in order to develop a safe application?
I see. And just in that I guess example of a verifier, or I guess a STARK verifier being implemented as a SNARK, does that give a quantum adversary like the opportunity to try kind of fool the verifier, or how would what's the quantum attack vector there?
I'm not entirely sure. I see that Duncan has something to add.
Maybe I can add a little bit over here. So basically, for example, if you implement the SNARK system, make use of the property called bilinear pairing, right? So by using the bilinear pairing of the elliptic curve structure, in order to be able to construct that kind of zero knowledge proof systems. So if we think about attacks from quantum computer, basically the ultimate attack is to recover all the secrets, right? So we don't need to bother any of that kind of like proof of the circuits because the underlying assumption is totally compromised under the quantum computer. As long as you are using bilinear pairing, because the underlying assumption is all related to the elliptic curve discrete law problem. Despite some of them are making use of like elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman problem, or maybe some other problems, but basically we all know that once the DRP or the discrete law problem is compromised, then all other kinds of related problem statements are no longer true. Yeah, so that's why, for example, like right now, people are talking about lattice-based snark. Actually, we are also working on that. And this is also something that we are currently focusing on. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah. Chemo, anything to add there? Or?
Well, I think I would just use a very simple analogy. It's like you're running like a setup party for, before you use, say, growth 16 kind of ZK snark, and we throw this party, everybody's contributing some secret, and then we build this master secret, and we're supposed to throw away the master secret. But having access to a large quantum computer is like having access to a time machine. The attacker can go back literally to that time and then figure out what's the secret is. And so there's no secrecy, and therefore there's no security. The entire ZK snark, at least the growth 16 base kind of ZK snark, they will no longer provide security.
Understood. Okay, thank you. So some of the I guess the biggest hurdles in adopting PQC from Duncan is designing from fundamental first principles the architecture of blockchains to be quantum resistant. Chenmo highlighted the scaling or kind of the performance issues that you incur with post-quantum cryptography, 10x performance cost, I guess, of adopting it, and then to Kathy's point, kind of making sure developers are building their snarks. Snarks to start off with are very complicated, and when you need to look into the different potential attack vectors, making sure that you get complete coverage. What do you guys think are some of the ways that we can best go about solving these problems? To make sure that we're able to achieve this in a safe and reliable way. Maybe starting with Duncan or Chenmo or.
So I think there is no one single solution to it. It's basically like a concerted effort. So for example, like in our project Billion, what we do is that we only focus on the infrastructure, like building all the building blocks, focusing on how to make sure it's like decentralized as well as secure, but at the same time, being able to build on top of what is already available. For example, like on Billion, we just make use of the library of the Open Quantum Safe, which has already been reviewed and developed by the community for all these years, more than 10 years. And then we built all those tools like privacy preserving modules on top of it. But in addition to that, basically we just open source and try to attract developers to build things on top of it. So I think there's no one single team which will be able to excel on all aspects. We just focus on what we can do the best. For example, our team is really just focusing on the cryptography part, the algorithm part, and then we also have some other community teams that they are really, we call them crypto engineers, that they will be able to understand the papers that we wrote, and then they will be able to implement our algorithms in a very secure way. So other than that, then some other engineers, they are just building more and more those secure applications one by one on top of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add to what Duncan just said. I think this is a concerted effort, and then I just want to add to the discussion that standardization can also help a lot. For example, once there's a standard, then a lot of engineers can kind of invest their time, their brain power on understanding and trying to implement these standards. And they can not only be used by blockchain projects, but other projects. There are a lot of systems that also use cryptography. So I think that will reduce what Kathy just mentioned, right? So there's maybe we can share some of the load with engineers from other fields. They may have worked on some other projects, not necessarily related to blockchain, but it would be nice to have access to a common pool of engineers with PQC expertise.
And if I may add, I think from the ecosystem perspective, it's definitely more of a culture or preference that we need to build. I mean, like, so post-quantum aside, even just like trustless versus, there is trust in the system. And a lot of time we do use systems that have trust assumptions because it's more efficient, in terms of like cost or speed. So it's almost like a process where we are pushing like trustless should always be better than having trust assumptions. And then post-quantum cryptography is always better than the cryptography that's not quantum safe. So I guess it's like a process that we need to start building that culture as well.
Right, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And I guess talking about culture, because obviously blockchains, I mean, if they're public blockchains, then they're built by the community, which I think we all think is very important, but it is sometimes difficult to get, to come to consensus as a community to focus on what to build next. Do you guys feel that post-quantum cryptography is being undervalued or maybe swept under the rug by a lot of communities, or where do you think, what do you think the public sentiment is in your ecosystems are?
So last year, if you asked the same question, I would say it's undervalued. But this year, it's a huge difference, actually, if you compare with last year. So, so if you just look into, say, the community of Abelian, and just look into the conversation and discussions over there, we are not in the education stage. We are actually on the adoption stage. That's a huge difference when compared with last year. Right now, the post-quantum part, especially as Chen Mo mentioned about the standardization, like next year, the US NIST is going to have the first standard coming out, which basically indicate all the federal government are going to upgrade their systems to post-quantum. And also we look into, say, some of those major companies like Google. Google has already integrated post-quantum crypto systems into the Chrome browser, right? Even the Signal has the post-quantum encryption system integrated into the app as well. So I think right now it's already like a race about how to deploy these post-quantum crypto systems into their systems to upgrade and to migrate. So I think it's a great timing right now. Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, definitely. But I guess I'm a bit more, I'm not as optimistic as Duncan. From what I see and also from what I heard, for a lot of projects, post-quantum crypto is still on the cost side, right? So it doesn't directly generate revenue like the scaling solution, for example, like some new features you can have. So people tend to say, okay, of course, post-quantum is important, but we have, it's on our list of priorities, but maybe it's more toward the bottom. There's 10 more things that we need to achieve. They are much more important because they generate revenue. So I think, but that's indeed improving. I think the situation, the awareness of the communities, indeed. I think I see more and more people ask this question: Is it post-quantum? Is it quantum safe? So I think I'd like to echo what Kathy just said. Maybe this community awareness is really important, because if all of us, we start to ask this question every time we see a project: is it quantum safe? I think that will also send out a message, put a pressure on these projects.
Yeah. And speaking of awareness, I actually come from sort of the opposite side. I used to do quantum computing research long time ago. So a lot of my colleagues are working at ex-colleagues are working in like Quantum Institute and stuff. I definitely think that the awareness is proportional to how fast quantum computing is progressing, right? So whenever there is a huge breakthrough, so it's rather reactive, which might not be a bad thing, but I think it can definitely be more proactive in a way. So it's more reactive in now that like whenever there is a large like advancement in quantum computing capability, then there is more talk on PQC. So yeah, that's sort of my observation.
Right, right, yeah.
So maybe we should fund more physicists.
Yeah, well, I do think quantum computing is being pretty well funded, and yeah, I think last year there was over 20 billion of private investments going to quantum computing, and national governments spent over 30 billion. So this is certainly top of mind for high-level government officials. Yeah. So I guess, and also I think it's kind of interesting to note that if so much money is going into quantum computing, the effort to protect against quantum computers should also be proportional, right? If we're going to be building quantum computers soon, then we also need to be that means we need to be protected from them also soon.
Yeah, but it's much cheaper to go post-quantum.
Right, so yeah, we don't need 30 billion, which is also a good
Yeah, this is, I think this is actually one of the rare cases where you want to on the defense side because it's so much cheaper. Well, you still, like I said, there's still a cost. It's not a free lunch. But compared with building a large quantum computer, it's so much cheaper.
Right, yeah. And that's probably one of the coolest things to note, which is that, and I'm not sure if everybody is aware of this, but in order to, I guess, perform or to do post-quantum cryptography, you don't need a quantum computer. You can do this on our computers that we have today. Yeah.
Even on our smartphone.
Even on our smartphones, yeah. So that's really one of the most spectacular things, and it's really about how do we transition all of our cryptographic stacks so that we can implement this PQC. Cool. So there is a lot of tension, I think, especially in blockchain communities, between building for the now and building for the future. There's obviously a lot of very important things to build right now in order to make blockchains able to see the light of day when quantum computers may possibly attack, and I think those are also very important things to build. How high would you, I guess, how would you guys go about, incentivizing development for PQC? And if you were to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, how important would you say PQC is?
So I would say that PQC is kind of like the infrastructure thing. For example, like when you do the online banking, the similar question is that how important it is to have the SSL. I would definitely say 10.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean that all the developers need to understand exactly how it works. For example, like when you build an online shopping mall, you just need to call the functions to use the OpenSSL and do all the stuffs. You don't need to know under the hood how it works. So for the PQC thing, I'm actually thinking about a similar thing. Like we focus on doing this kind of post-quantum crypto systems or the modules, and we contribute to the community. And the rest of the community, they can just make use of the modules that we built in order to make sure their systems are also quantum resistant. So that's why I would say the importance is 10, but doesn't mean that all the developers need to know exactly how it works under the hood. The developers need to know how to make use of them in order to make sure the system is quantum resistant.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I think 10 is a good number. Maybe we'll just leave it there because we do only have 5 minutes left. So maybe we'll just close up the discussion with going through some cool and interesting things each of you are working on right now.
Okay, so so what I'm working on is not really related directly with PQC, but so I work on sort of implementing machine learning stuff in ZK circuits. And one of the cool things that I'm working on right now is, so there are cameras that are attested, right? Meaning that it can sign a photo with a signature to prove that it's taken from a camera. So that's pretty cool, but one major problem is you can easily take a picture of a picture, right? So that doesn't prove that the picture is authentic. But what we could add to that signature is also, along with that, a CK proof of what's called a image recapture detection model. So you can run machine learning and prove that this picture has a very low probability of being recaptured. Right? So the two things together will prove sort of authenticity of a picture, which is sort of, I guess, one of the biggest topic of the year with Gen AI and stuff.
That seems so important.
So from my side, definitely I'm just 100% or 200% focused on Abelian. But one particular part that I'm really working on is a bridge to connect Abelian with other chains. The challenging thing is that we are trying to create a bridge so that we can also support the upgrade of other chains to post-quantum, to quantum resistant. You may imagine like we are trying to make Abelian as a layer 0. And for all other chains, you don't need to focus a lot on the post-quantum part. But once our bridge is ready, then you can basically make use of the bridge to connect Abelian with your chain. And you can actually convert all your smart contract to quantum resistant. So about that bridge, it's a lattice-based zero-knowledge proof system. So this is actually something that I'm currently working on. In May, I published a yellow paper to talk about how to build that bridge. And right now, we are at the design stage to basically actualize all the equations that we wrote in the yellow paper. So that's what I'm working on.
Thank you. Yeah, lattice-based snarks seem very interesting, so can't wait to read it. Chenmo?
For me, so we're actually working with the community participating in this NIST selection of the next generation post-quantum signature scheme. And our proposal is called Prion. And I like to think it's one of its it has a very unique feature. So we're actually aiming not only to design a digital signature scheme, but a digital signature scheme with extension. So it's possible to extend this digital signature to include more advanced features such as selective reveal. So roughly speaking, this feature will allow you to show that I have signed a particular document, let's say my birth certificate, or that should be signed by the government. But in any case, when I verify this signature, I don't need to disclose all the information in the document, and yet the verifier can still verify that this is an authentic document, and then it contains certain field, which I selectively reveal. And that's kind of, I guess, one cool application is that you can go to a bar and produce a Prion signature showing that you're above legal age to drink, without showing them your exact date of birth, things like that, applications like that.
Amazing. So post-quantum ZK signature schemes.
Something like that, yes.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all the time that we have today. So I hope you found this interesting and you were able to take something away from it. So thank you all very much for your time, and thank you to our panelists for your thoughts. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.